Hello and welcome to the YouTube channel for Craftworld Eldar.com. I'm Brent, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about the datasheet reveal for Eldrad Datasheet from the Kansas City Open last week. A few of you may not know that there were over a dozen officially revealed Eldari datasheets that are not on the Warhammer community page, but are GW sanctioned reveals. When I made my previous video talking about those, Eldrad had not dropped yet, and now he has, and so I'm talking about him now. This is exciting. There's no doubt that Eldrad is the most famous named character in the whole Craftworld's lineup, and the most significant change to the datasheet. One of the most significant changes is that he's no longer sub-faction locked. I think we all expected this because 10th edition has moved away from sub-faction locked characters, but it means it doesn't matter if you're running Oathway, you can run Eldrad, which is exciting. And I will now make some people mad by saying that, and there is good reason to consider running Eldrad. There's a lot of salt online. A lot of people are mad. They think that he's not good. He's good. I don't know that he's an auto include in all of the lists, but he has a clear job that he does. He does it well. He can really bring something meaningful to the table, and I'm going to talk about what that is and I think how he would function best in just a moment. But I just like to point out that if you're looking at the 10th edition data sheets in terms of the 9th edition game, there are going to be changes that appear underpowered, or maybe even in some cases overpowered. It's not 9th edition anymore. And if you compare this Eldrad with the 2 built-in psychic powers to the old Eldrad, who could have 3 with 12 to choose from, rerolling all of them, he's going to look watered down. And in one sense he is. And the sense in which he's watered down is that he is less customizable. But given the way psychic works in this new edition, I think what he does well, and he has a lot to offer. He fills a very particular role on the table, and he has some pretty powerful synergy with other new rules and other units, and I'll talk about those things. So, the Eldrad Datasheet. He is a Farseer, unsurprisingly. He has the stat line I think that you would expect. He's a little tougher than your standard Farseer at 4, like he was last time, but otherwise, you know, he's a Farseer. He has got that 4-up invuln. He has 5 wounds, movement of 7. He's pretty standard. He's got a shuriken pistol, whatever. His melee weapon, the staff of Ulthamar, and his Witchblade is a souped up witch weapon. So 3 attacks, hits on 2s, wounds infantry on 2s automatically, -1 AP, flat 2 damage. So if he tangles with some Space Marines in close combat and survives to hit back, he can do a little damage. But here's what Eldrad really brings to the table, right? He's got, first thing, the Mind War ranged weapon. So Mind War is a psychic power from the last edition and previous editions, and here's how this works. It's an 18-inch ranged attack that is anti-character, so it automatically scores critical hits against characters on a 4-up to wound. It has precision, so you can target characters in a unit. That's the new sniper power. It's a psychic attack. 1 attack, hits on 2s, strength 5, but remember that it's anti-character 4-up, so even a very tough character, it's going to wound that character on a 4-up. -2 AP, D6 damage, and you can use Strands of Fate to just automatically do 6 damage. So against a lot of targets, you're going to be hitting on 2s, wounding on either 3s or 4s, and then you can automatically do 6 damage. In combination with other powers that have precision, or like your Rangers that do flat 2 damage when they smack something with precision, you can kill a pretty powerful character that marches into the midfield. It's only an 18-inch range, right? So I think how Eldrad is going to function is he's going to stay either at the front of your deployment zone or the back of the midfield until the late game, and keep his head down, and we be with a bodyguard unit, and he's going to be popping out with the bodyguard unit when it's appropriate for him to do so, and either then running back into cover with Fire and Fade or with Phantasm with that bodyguard unit to to throw Mind War and also Doom. Doom is really good. Again, I just made some people mad by saying that because it is mathematically, it's slightly less powerful than it was before, but in combination with other new powers and other new rules, it's really good. So let's talk Doom. At the start of your shooting phase, you select one enemy unit within 18 inches of this Psyker invisible, and on a 2-up until the end of turn, each time a friendly Eldari model makes an attack, it adds 1 to the wound roll. Now, first thing to acknowledge, Doom now requires line of sight, which is another reason why I think that you're going to need to have the command points to run away with Eldrad and his bodyguard unit. If you know, when he's doing his work for you. It's only 18 inches. So Eldrad is a tool for bringing force to bear on the midfield. He can pick a target and make it really easy to kill. He can pick a character that's unit protected and in combination with some other precision fire, pop it and then run away. This is a really powerful deterrent and a really powerful leverage tool in the midfield. Let me talk about why I think that +1 to wound on Doom is actually really good. Now, statistically, if the old Doom, obviously, you just re-roll. Some of the +1 to wound for some stuff is the same. So if you were only wounding on a 6, but you got to re-roll, well, you have a 1 in 3 chance of getting at least 1 6 on 2 rolls of a d6. So if you're only wounding on a 6, if you're targeting something that's like toughness 12 and you've got your strength 4 shuriken catapults, Eldrad's Doom now is exactly like the old Doom. That is, now you wound on 5+, so you've got a 1 in 3, and if you had only been wounding on 6s with a reroll, it's would be a 1 in 3. But in the middle of the wound math, right? Like when you would have wounded on a 4 or whatever, it's better to wound on 4s with a reroll than it is just to wound on 3s. Mathematically, it's a little bit better. So there is in the middle of the spectrum, there's a come down a little bit in terms of the likelihood of wounding. But Doom is no longer core locked. So this now works for like your Bright Lances, for your D cannons, right? So your really hard hitting stuff that maybe would have been wounding on a 3 is now wounding on a 2. That's cool. You could reasonably point out that with the really hard hitting stuff, you can make it auto wound with Strands of Fate anyway, so you don't really need Doom. So where I think Doom really shines is with massed fire with the smaller weapons. So like if you have a bunch of jet bikes, for example, with twin-linked shuriken catapults, well, couple things. Twin-linked shuriken catapults already reroll wound rolls. That stacks on top of Doom. So if you get a big unit of Wind Riders and you put them on top of a ruin high up, they can shoot something with plunging fire to take their AP to -2, and they're going to wound even the toughest stuff in the game on a 5-up, re-rolling the wound roll, which means they're going to have a better than 50% chance. Your strength 4 shuriken catapults are going to have a better than 50% chance of wounding something that's like toughness 12 or toughness 16. I don't even know if that's a thing, but that's pretty cool. Your Dire Avengers, right, who have a pretty high rate of fire and then can overwatch and shoot again on your opponent's movement phase, even if they're not being charged. You can throw Doom on something, and you can blast it with Doom. Now, Doom, when you use the Overwatch shooting on your opponent's turn, you won't have Doom because Doom lasts until end of turn. But you'll get another phase of shooting with those Dire Avenger Shuriken catapults on top of like 33 shots with the rerolls to wound against something that is pretty high toughness. Certainly against some stuff that's like toughness 6, toughness 7, the ability of your Dire Avengers and your other stuff with like an 18-inch range to delete stuff in the midfield becomes pretty significant. So Eldrad is a damage multiplier for the midfield that makes it possible for your high volume, low strength weapons to really do some damage and to mess up units that would normally be out of their weight class. Now let's be clear. D cannons are so good that I don't know that you're going to need Eldrad to do that. One of the reasons the D cannons are good is that they aren't just good against really tough targets, because D cannons have devastating wounds and do D6 plus 2 mortal wounds on a 6-2 wound. Well, you can shoot like infantry with them, and when those mortal wounds bleed over, they'll pick up a bunch of dudes. But nevertheless, I think that as we figure out how we balance our lists, like how many of those big hard-hitting weapons do we want, do we need, it is worth remembering that if you include Eldrad in a list, your shuriken catapults and even your shuriken cannons. I'm a big fan of shuriken cannons in this edition. I really like the 3 shots, strength 6, flat 2 damage, with the sustained hits, or the whatever it is, the exploding 6s. I think that's really good. And again, stuff that they would have been wounding, stuff that's like T10 that they would have been wounding on a 5, now they're wounding on a 4. There's not a lot of damage reduction in this edition. So suddenly your shuriken cannons with Eldrad in the mix too are yet another tool that can be used against the toughest models in the game. The last thing that Eldrad does is he gives you more fate dice, which is just great. So at the beginning of the game, instead of rolling 12, now you have 15. So that's just by virtue of having them in your list, you suddenly have 3 more automatically successful dice rolls. That's awesome. Now, although I think that the standard way to use Eldrad, as I said before, is going to be to hold him back early. He's going to be positioned sort of forward in your deployment zone or at the back of the midfield in order to help you put pressure on the midfield. But the other thing you could do with him is stick him in a transport, because in 10th edition, a unit can jump out of a transport and still shoot. Also, he would be out of the transport at the start of the shooting phase, so he could also use Doom. So potentially Eldrad and his bodyguard could be in a Wave Serpent alongside some other unit if he's running with a Warlock Conclave, right? Or we don't know how good those are going to be. The multi-model Foot Conclaves, I'm hoping pretty good. Or maybe he's in there with 10 Guardians or something. I don't know, but he could potentially be part of a like run and gun unit that is going to push on one of your opponent's flanks and use terrain in the middle of the table to shut down firing lanes. So potentially you start him in a transport, you pop him onto the one flank or the other, he jumps out 3 inches from the transport, you're using terrain to screen him, and you make sure you have enough overwhelming force on that side of the table to pick up anything that's a threat, and then you have him like deep in the midfield, able to act as a threat. Now, obviously, that flanking force has to include other models besides just the transport, but Eldar are highly mobile, and oftentimes we play that way, right? We keep our head down, we put some pressure on the midfield, and we wait for there to be an opportunity to crush a flank, to hit an opponent where there's vulnerability, and pretty soon the game swings in your favor. So that's another way to work around the 18-inch range. You need to be, don't shoot your transport up the board first turn, have Eldrad jump out, throw Doom on something, and let your opponent kill Eldrad and whatever else is. It's not going to be, you want him to be around for a while. I don't know how many points he's going to cost, but I feel confident that he's not a disposable unit. Lastly, we haven't seen all the data sheets yet, but he may also have really good synergy with some of the other aspect warriors that we haven't had a look at, or with swooping hawks, or anything else that potentially is going to have volume of fire in order to make that volume of fire much more versatile in terms of the kinds of units that it can damage. And remember that anything with that's twin linked will essentially doubly benefit, because it gets the reroll and it gets the +1. My last video is pretty hard on the twin linked heavy bright lances on the Wave Serpent, because you already get, for the the Eldar, what do you call it? Whatever's replacing sub-faction powers. You get +1, you can reroll 1 hit die and 1 wound die for everything. Well, that too is stacking with Eldred's +1. So anything that's twin linked, theoretically you're rerolling multiple times. Twin linked Bright Lances still aren't good because it's 1 die and you already get to reroll it. But something like the Star Cannons or something that fires more shots potentially is also benefiting because you're rerolling everything. But that's what I've got. I think the extra fate dice are great. It's a really powerful mechanic, the fate dice, and Eldrad is a damage multiplier, and now we know where Doom went. That's the most iconic Eldar psychic power, and it was a little weird when we didn't see it in that initially revealed set of data sheets, and now we know. So that's it. Short video. We should have point values and the rest of the data sheets soon. When we do, I'll talk about those. Until then, if you have not considered becoming a Patreon, you might consider doing that. They get early access to most of this content. They get to talk to one another on a Discord, which I really enjoy selfishly. It's super cool. There are other advantages as well. If you have not liked this video, I hope you will like it. If you have not yet subscribed, I hope you will subscribe. And if you leave a comment below, it will not only delight me, but also help out my algorithm. All right, that's what I've got. Thanks, guys. I'll be back again soon. Until then, best of luck in your anticipation of 10th edition. Take care.